So now that I am back on YouTube making regular videos for the channel, I felt that it was a good idea to get back to what I do best, which is talking about Metroid Prime 4. Now, I've probably put in hundreds upon hundreds of hours talking about Metroid Prime 4 since it was revealed back in 2017, coming up on 5 years ago as of June this year, since Metroid Prime 4 was first revealed. And I've covered just about every possible story or piece of news around that game that one possibly could cover because I am that excited, and you guys know Metroid is my favorite franchise, and Metroid Prime, the original game, is my all-time favorite video game. But there is an angle I really haven't discussed too much, and I felt like it was a good time to kind of break down some of my thoughts on it for you guys, and that's whether or not Metroid Prime 4 was maybe revealed too early by Nintendo, and honestly why I think they revealed it at the time that they did. Before we jump into the Metroid Prime 4 topic today, I like to remind you guys I'm always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. Now that I am back from my break, I upload every single week. I cover all things Nintendo and all things Metroid and all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what I'm doing and what you hear, then I hope you will consider subscribing to the channel. The whole situation around Metroid Prime 4 is definitely a very curious case, the way I see it, because that was a game that was revealed with nothing more than a logo. It was E3 2017. The Nintendo Switch was just barely 3 months old at the time that that show happened. And so it was their first chance, Nintendo's first chance, to address the world at E3. Again, this is even before the pandemic, so things were much more normal at the time. It's almost hard to remember what it was like, but it was several years before then, right? So it was a normal time in human history. And it was Nintendo's first chance at an E3 show with a brand spanking new system on the market to show us the possible and potential future of that system and why it was going to matter and why that it was something we should care about. And that's a very important thing to remember about what E3 2017 felt like at the time. And it's been many years, and the Switch is so successful now that it's almost a foregone conclusion. But if you go back to June 2017, it wasn't a foregone conclusion. Even though there was a ton of hype around the system and it launched strongly and Breath of the Wild took the world by storm and we were all transfixed on all of that, it wasn't a foregone conclusion that the Nintendo Switch would be a big hit at all, let alone cross 100 million units. I mean, things were very mysterious at the time. And as you know, the Wii U was just recently Nintendo's front-facing home console. And as much as I love the Wii U to death, we all know it was not a success. And so Nintendo was kind of digging themselves out of a hole, I regret to say, from the Wii U at the time that the Switch launched. So Nintendo was definitely riding a wave of hype, and that felt great. And they had a console that seemed interesting to most of the world at the time, so it felt like maybe the slump was over, but no one truly knew. And so Nintendo was in this weirdly great position to release a console at an unorthodox time in March. Like, that's not normally when hardware launches, right? So they released it in March, like in, springtime, and they had an E3 right after that launch that they were able to say, hey, this is what we're trying to do with the Nintendo Switch. Be excited. And I think it was overall a strong show because they got to have things like Yoshi there and Splatoon 2 and Super Mario Odyssey. Some games we did know about, some games we didn't. So we were seeing things come into focus as far as the launch year of the Switch looking really strong. Again, coming off of the insanely amazing Breath of the Wild as a launch title. Like, probably the best launch title any video game console has ever had, except for maybe Super Mario 64, right? And so it was a good show, but one of the things they chose to include is the infamous Metroid Prime 4 reveal, that teaser, which is nothing more than a floating logo in space. You've seen it several times in my videos over the years. In fact, you've already seen it in this video. That's the only thing we've had about Metroid Prime 4 officially to show anyone since this reveal in 2017. And so this kind of brings me to my core point of this video and what I want to get at. And it's, many people have debated since that time, and especially since the delay of the game in 2019 and the fact that we haven't seen it in 3 years. 5 years since the reveal, 3 years since the delay, right? We haven't seen it. And many people have debated whether or not Nintendo maybe showed the game too early. oh man, I really wish Nintendo didn't show Metroid Prime too early. That ruined everything. Here we are 5 years later. We haven't even seen the game. It may take another 5 years before it comes out. They keep putting out, job requests, and so people, misinterpret that as the game being in trouble behind the scenes for a second time, and all these things. And it all really goes back to that E3 2017 reveal and that logo trailer reveal, and that's all that we had at the time. And honestly, many people might not agree with me, but I think it's important for me to tell you guys how I feel. And no, I actually don't think that Nintendo revealed Metroid Prime 4 too early. Now, there are two main reasons why I don't think Metroid Prime 4 was revealed too early, and in fact, in many ways, you could maybe argue that it was shown at the exact right time. Again, we have hindsight that can maybe change that, but when you go back to when Nintendo made the decision before they chose to delay and restart the game in 2019, at that time in 2017, that is when I think there's a case to make that says maybe it was the exact perfect time to show that game. And one of the main reasons is, here's the thing. This is one of the main reasons why I think it was not too early to reveal the game. And it's really all of the context I already gave you in this video. And it's what the purpose of E3 2017 was supposed to be with the brand new Switch on the market. It was meant to hype up their console. They didn't want to see a situation with the Wii U where it comes out of the gate and does pretty okay for itself, and then just completely flatlines and dies. They knew that they had to keep up crazy momentum. They had to let people know about the promise of the future. That phrase is the key to all of this, right? Not Jar Jar is the key to all of this. Promise of the future is the key to all of this, for anyone who understands that inside Star Wars reference, right? And I think I even probably said that in many of my videos, even at that time, back in 2017 and 2018. I think that showing Metroid Prime 4 with just a logo was the promise of the future to all of the new Switch owners at the time and all of the prospective new Switch owners at the time. Because, they probably had sold like 3 million or 4 million Switches by June of 2017, right? Now there's 103 million sold. They've sold 100 million more Switches between that E3 in 2017 and today. So that's 100 million people who didn't yet have a Switch, and many of them didn't know if there was ever going to be a reason for them to own one. So in that first E3, what you need to do is let them know, not only did we just launch with this amazing Zelda game that's worth the price of admission alone, but there's more coming. And what's an exciting game to reveal that is the, again, promise of the future? It's Metroid Prime 4, which is not only a new Metroid game that was exciting, but it was a Metroid Prime game, a sequel to Metroid Prime 3 that we never thought was possible. It was only a dream in our heads, and Nintendo was willing to confirm it to make a big, bold statement in that first E3 after the Switch launched that, hey, we are taking this thing seriously. We are in it for the long haul. We are here to make sure that this Switch is a massive success, unlike our Wii U that we just spent the last 4.5 years on. We want this thing to really hit. We want you to know we're making so many good games and so many franchises and genres, it's going to make your head spin. And so, Metroid Prime 4 at that time was a statement game. This game is coming. And straight up, you guys, I can't blame them for that. I don't blame them for that. That moment, that reveal is still one of my favorite moments as a game fan that I can never even think of, And I'm glad that we had that moment, and I'm glad that we knew the game was coming. Sure, it sucked to not have any footage or anything and not know when it was coming, and for the next year, we all kept thinking every new Nintendo Direct was going to have a trailer for that game. And obviously, it just became silence after silence after silence until the inevitable and unfortunate delay in 2019. And we all know that story, and I've covered it many times. But, I just loved knowing the game was coming. It actually put me at great ease, just knowing that Nintendo was making a new Metroid game and a Metroid Prime 4 game. Not the least of which, by the way, there is the asterisk that, of course, Metroid Samus Returns was also revealed then. So we had another Metroid game releasing to tide us over as well. So it was just a great day and a great time for Metroid fans. And so I understand why they did what they did from that perspective. Like, let's tell everyone that we're making this game. It's not even close to ready. They probably just started getting together to make the game. And so I understood why they wanted to tell people about the game. Now, the other main reason why I think it's, why I don't think Nintendo necessarily revealed the game too early is because, you guys, the delay that happened in 2019 was not planned to happen, okay? So that was a surprise, weird, one-off, obscure situation that rarely happens. I mean, we know it does happen with games, but it rarely happens with games by comparison. It rarely happens with Nintendo as far as we know. And the fact that they even chose to come out and tell us really said a lot about what Nintendo was planning with that game and how they were treating it with a lot of care and how they were concerned about how the fans would receive the information. And so, in a perfect world, you guys, that delay and the switching of teams from whatever that team was, Bandai or whoever it was, from that team over to Retro Studios in 2019, that wasn't part of the development plan. So in a perfect world, the game would have been revealed in 2017, and maybe by late 2018 or sometime in 2019, 2 or 3 years later, we would have seen the game release. That delay would never have happened. You have to imagine a world where the delay didn't happen. And then it's just a normal video game reveal. It's revealed in 2017, and 2, 3, maybe 4 years later, the game itself comes out. Think about it. If the delay never happened in 2019, that weird situation that you can never plan for, then we would already probably have played the game. It would probably already be in our hands, right? Because, again, it was almost 5 years ago that the game was revealed. The game would have released before then. But things happened weirdly and differently behind the scenes. Things that you can't always account for. And Nintendo had to make a last-minute 11th hour decision to switch teams and restart the game and do the whole thing that we know about. And so it's hard to hold, you know, an unknown 2-year future against the reveal in 2017. Does that make sense? We can't hold what happened in 2019 against Nintendo's decision in 2017. They didn't know that that was going to happen in 2019. That wasn't part of their plan. If the game was revealed in 2017 and released in 2019 or 2020, 2 or 3 years later, would we be complaining about when they chose to show the game? No. Most of their Zelda games take years to come out after they're revealed. Halo Infinite took years to come out. Cyberpunk took years to come out. The Last of Us Part 2 took years to come out. I mean, plenty of games take a long time to come out. With Nintendo, to be fair, we're used to them revealing games close to when they're ready, just like they did with Metroid Dread, for example. But every once in a while, they choose to give us a big game really early on. Like Breath of the Wild when they revealed that in 2014, which didn't release until 2017, by the way, and had several delays. And like they did with Metroid Prime 4. They revealed it in 2017, they didn't know a huge delay and restart was going to happen. And so they thought it was probably going to come out way before now, and things changed. And now, I think there's 2 things holding it back. One is the delay in 2019, and the other is, as you guys know, I think the game is being developed for their next generation hardware, whatever that's supposed to look like and whenever it's going to come out. They're either developing it exclusively for that or alongside of it so that it can release cross-generationally. And so I think their business decision around their next hardware is also impacting Metroid Prime 4. That's nothing more than speculation on my part. Okay, I'm not putting a freaking rumor out there or a leak. Do not run with that story. That's just a prediction as a fan. And so, you know, I feel like I've gone on long enough about all of this. These are the main reasons, the core reasons why when I look back at, you know, June 2017 and that E3 and Nintendo's reveal of that trailer that we've all seen 2 trillion times, I don't blame them, and I do not think that they revealed it too early. Because it's obvious that they wanted to let people know that, hey, this is a promise of the future, we're making this big game and it's coming down the road, and they didn't know that they were going to have to delay it and switch teams 2 years later. They didn't know that. They thought it was going to be a normal 2, 3, or 4 year development cycle, man. So how can you blame them in 2017 for something they didn't know was going to go wrong 2 years later? I personally can't do that. So that's why I think Metroid Prime 4 was probably revealed at the perfect time, when the Switch was brand new. So these are just some of my thoughts as a huge Metroid fan, and I really cannot wait to hear what you guys have to say about this, because like I said, one of the reasons, you know, I wanted to make this video for a very long time, for over a year I've wanted to make this video and this conversation. And one of those reasons is because, like I said, people have been debating it for a long time, and I hear it in a lot of my conversations, a lot of my comment sections, a lot of my Twitter threads, you know, and I even see other Metroid fans doing it, you know, because I have so much Metroid conversation that comes my way, as you can imagine. And I just see and hear it, you know, people mentioning that, oh man, I'm so mad we haven't seen the game. Nintendo showed it too early. They really messed up by showing it so early, blah, 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 blah. And you know, it's one of those scenarios where I do understand why people say it. I actually do understand why it happens that way, but I also understand why Nintendo showed it when they did, and I don't think that they made a mistake simply because they didn't know what was going to happen in the future. You know, it's everything I already said, so I don't want to go back down that road again. So these are my thoughts. Like I said, I can't wait to hear how you guys feel about this and react about it, and what your opinions are about Nintendo's choice to reveal just a Metroid Prime 4 logo in 2017, and then here we are almost 5 years later, and we haven't seen even a speck, even a frame of the game. You know, I want to hear your thoughts on that and what I laid out in today's video. So with that, this is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.